Welcome to another episode of Chris McDaniel's America here on the Midnight Ride Network, your home for the anti-establishment movement in this country. We're glad you're here. Thanks for being a part of this. Jack, how are you today?
I'm here. I'm kind of tired, but, we got to get a show going.
Well, this is when the brave and strong people must step up. You have to persevere through the fatigue.
You just have to soldier on.
Yeah, soldier on. There's a lot to talk about today. We're talking about... first of all, the discourse in this country and how it's degraded over the past few years. And the question, I think, the overarching question for this show today is, who is the real threat to democracy? Now, I do not mean to concede that this is a democracy that we're a part of. We are not a part of a democracy. We never have been. This is a republic. And those of us that are versed in history recognize there's a big difference between democracy and a republic. The easiest way to look at it is a democracy is dangerous. A democracy allows people that happen to find a couple of friends and get 51% of a vote or the majority of an issue to deprive you of rights and privileges and to take what's yours. A republic, on the other hand, has certain safeguards. There's certain things you can't do in a republic even if you have a majority. And that's a good thing because sometimes the majority can be moved by passions or fueled by intense hatred or bias or prejudices or sometimes just bad information. So we do not have a democracy in this country, but yet if the Democrats are going to use that term, and they've been using that term, let's at least meet them on the battleground and ask the serious question, who is the real threat to democracy? It appears the real threat to democracy are those on the left. That's at least my position, because they aren't really after democracy, they're after power. And there's a big difference there. I really believe that if they could hold power and get rid of democracy, they would. All they've ever cared about is the ability to control. The very essence of their movement is coercion, government force, authority. They claim they're anti-authoritarian. They claim Trump's going to be the next Hitler. They think somehow a dictator. But if you think about it, all the major measures over the past, I don't know how long, whether it's economic or whether it's civil or cultural, everything we've seen, or every place we've seen a loss of liberty and freedom, is always because of some bureaucrat or some authoritarian on the left that wants to tell you how you should live and what is appropriate to say and what pronouns to use and when you can drink and what you can eat and every other conceivable thing, including mask on your face. It's always the left that pushes the authoritarian concept. So let's talk about, just for a moment, some polling, and let's transition into who the real threat to democracy is. Interesting data today from Gallup. I don't know if you guys saw this poll, but all this consternation and all this worry about Harris having leads in these national polls, I've been telling you not to worry about that because the national polling isn't indicative of who's going to win the presidency. Why is that? Because we're not a democracy. There's an electoral college that will decide this process, and so basically about 5 to 7 states right now, maybe even 3, will ultimately decide who the president of the United States is. Here's the way that works. California is going to vote for Harris. Mississippi and other states are going to vote for Trump. No real mystery there. And that's how most of the states are shaping up. You have some that are kind of toss-ups. They're not super important, but kind of important. But then you have those 6 or 7 that are going to make or break this entire election for everyone. So here's the data. Everyone's scared, everyone's worried because Harris has a 3-point lead in the national polls. Who cares about that? 3-point leads are easy to ascertain if you manipulate the polling data. Maybe if you oversample a California or oversample a Minnesota or oversample a New York, you can get numbers that kind of benefit your Democratic tendencies. However, when you look at the data here, it looks like the Republicans really are in a decent position. Gallup has looked back over many years, and they've basically asked similar questions, trying to find a baseline for a belief system and to try to predict how elections are going to come out. And they've got a cool bit of data out right now that demonstrates a couple of things. There are 3 things that line up typically before a president can win, or better yet, before a party can win. The 3 things usually are how United States adults self-identify, whether as Republicans or Democrats. And it turns out that right now the data shows that most self-identifying adults identify as Republican. Number 2, the question is, which party is better able to handle the things that are most important to the American people? The data shows people think the Republicans can. And what are those issues? Immigration, inflation, and the economy. I've been saying that for a long time, Jack. Nobody wants to listen to me.
It's something we have echoed numerous times.
So when Trump is up there talking about crowd sizes, that's okay. And if he's talking about cats and dogs being eaten by Haitian immigrants, I don't see why. Because if he'll stick to those three issues, he'll win this race outright. The data is showing that he's going to win if he sticks to those issues. And then lastly, there's just this general dissatisfaction with the state or the nature or the direction the country is heading. Those three things, dissatisfaction of where the country is heading, how you self-identify, and which party do you think can handle these issues more effectively. And it turns out that Gallup has shown once again, based on their data, looking back for many, many years, that Republicans have the edge. In other words, if you look at the data, shake it up, throw it on the table, Republicans should win most of these races. Now, what we're seeing is a divide. I'm seeing data now that seems to indicate that the Republicans will barely hold the Senate and the Republicans will barely lose the House. Okay, fine. That just means nothing's going to get done from any party, which is something else we've been saying since day one on this show that nobody seems to listen to. Maybe it's we have this declining number of people watching. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's your fault, Jack. I'm not sure what's occurring. But the bottom line here is that ultimately, A, this election is not going to be the end of mankind as we know it. B, there's probably going to be a divided government, one way or the other. I wish that were not the case. I wish Republicans could win the presidency and the House and have 61 votes in the Senate so as not to be terribly concerned about that filibuster issue. But that's not going to happen. So here we are with all the news and all the consternation and all the worry about Harris being president. The data shows the Republicans are in a really good position. I like it.
Well, Chris, when you look at that data and you see the breakdown, of course, we know the issues are winning issues. We've been talking about it for months now. Stay on topic, stay on target, hit these key points, and you'll win this election. When you see numbers like this and it backs it up, and it also confirms that this country is not nearly as radicalized as the media wants us to believe. They want us to believe that this nation wants to move further and further to the left, and I just don't see it.
Well, here's the thing. I think there's an element that does. I think that if you take a snapshot of for instance, women 18 to 29, well, they're definitely going to be moving further to the left. They're backing Harris by 67%. Yeah. Well, 64% are backing Harris. That's 67 to 33 split in politics. That's a pretty large gap. Mm-hmm. So there are elements where that's occurring, but I think you're right. I think for the most part, most Americans are still trying to figure out just how wacky the Democrats have become. And I think many Americans intuitively know that the party's gone wacky and that they are fearful about the future of this country. Now, what does it look like in 20 years with the current demographic changes? Probably not really good unless we begin to communicate our messages more effectively, get rid of those old timers like Mitch McConnell. By the way, let me vent on that just for a second. You know, the Democrats always find these hip, young, articulate, charismatic people to kind of lead their party. Not us.
Nope.
Not us. We got 85 or 80-year-old turtles in the Senate trying to make speeches that are supposed to impact people and move the needle for us. It's not happening. It's because our establishment simply can't let go of that country club mentality and the power they've always held. If they did and actually let young people rise and you let young conservatives speak, you might be surprised the message of liberty, it does work for people. I saw even today Zuckerberg comes out. And he's making it clear he's a libertarian.
Wow.
I kind of always assume that. Now, don't get me wrong. This is not a defense of Mark Zuckerberg. I don't want you revoking my Trump privilege card here. I'm as mad at Facebook as everybody else is because I've seen my numbers go down dramatically over the last few years.
All of us.
There was a time I would get 20,000 likes on a post. Now I may get 5. There was a time I got 300,000 views on a video. Now I may get 1,000. We know what's happening. They're censoring data, right?
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't mean necessarily he's an evil man. I still don't like you a whole lot for those reasons, but at least he is self-identifying as a libertarian. That's interesting because he's young. Mm-hmm. He has a young, built-in kind of base there on Facebook. And I really believe that libertarian or more live and let live philosophy is something young people would naturally gravitate to. if it were communicated in a better way.
I agree.
We don't communicate it. We make it sound like we're protecting the rich and the wealthy. We make it sound like we're protecting the old country club establishment. Meanwhile, young people are saying, what do I believe? And I think most young people just want to be left alone.
Well, Chris, in many ways, and I think you hit on it when you talk about the establishment that won't let go. In many ways, the Republican Party, at least the old wing, that's exactly what they're doing. They are protecting the rich and the old because they are holding on. How many times, Chris, again, you being a recovering politician.
20 years.
20
years.
How many times were you told, Chris, you just need to wait your turn?
A lot. And it's not just that. There is, look, you want to get real?
Let's get real.
You're supposed to say, let's get real, son.
Let's get real, son.
You haven't seen enough Dave Chappelle. Let me tell you the way it really works in the real world. The vast majority of politicians are just butt kissers. Not just with the general public, because there's something to be said about kissing the butt of your boss, I suppose.
Yeah.
They're butt kissers to the established order. They'll grovel. They'll kneel. They'll wash the rims of the cars if they're asked to.
Yeah.
They'll do whatever it takes to maintain themselves in the good graces of these established, older, wealthy donors and established, older, wealthy power brokers. Well, they're in D.C. or in the state capitals. Now, what that does, because they're so ambitious and they allow their egos to control how they see the world, they're willing to be subservient to Big Papa.
Yeah.
Whoever the case may be. Anything for $1, anything for a free football ticket to an Ole Miss game, right? Anything they'll do for a free steak, right? These people are predictable because they so badly want to be liked. They're predictable because they so badly want to acquire power. But guess what? The establishment knows that. And so they dangle tidbits of power. Could be illusory. May not be power at all. I'll give you an example. If you're the president, lieutenant governor of Mississippi, you're literally controlling the entire Senate of the state.
Yes.
Every vote you control. So there's no point in having a Senate. Those losers are going to do whatever he tells them to do.
Yep.
They're not all losers. There's a handful that are good, I should say that. But they're going to do whatever they're told, right?
We've seen it.
We've seen that time and time and time again. So basically, he's in control of the whole shooting match. But what's the illusory thing he'll dangle in front of them to keep them controlled? He'll say, I'm going to give you a committee chairmanship. Now, you've got no power. You can't make an independent call. You can't move a bill until you rush up to the third floor and ask for permission from the lieutenant governor. So you don't really have power, but you have the office. You have the station. You have the feeling of importance.
The status.
The status. And that's how they control you. And the establishment knows that. The donors know it too. They'll keep these guys dancing through hurdles and jumping hoops to do their bidding. Meanwhile, the poor people out there are saying, why aren't they listening to me? I tell you why they're not listening, because you don't have any money. That's why they're not listening. You don't have any real power because you have allowed your power to be taken away. If you exercise your power with your neighbors and your friends and your community and your churches and you pushed back against the system, they would then in turn change. They don't have to change though, because they know most of you aren't paying attention and they're going to put on the TV commercials and the direct mail pieces and you're going to fall for it every single time. And it's exactly why most of you think you're a politician, or the political class, the class of politicians, you think they're lost, you think they stink, you think they have to be replaced, but then you'll vote for your politician every single time he runs. Hence, the re-election rate is 99%. Again, this great disconnect, right?
Yeah.
That's the way the game is played. So when they get there, they grovel. When they get there, they beg for scraps. And they get the scraps so long as they don't move too fast. So long as they don't act truly conservative. Because bear in mind now, the leaders up there, they're not really conservative, and they need you sometimes to not be conservative. So you have to sacrifice your principles, sacrifice your votes, in order to maintain good graces. And if you kiss the ring and maintain good graces, you will advance inside the Capitol. It's the same in Jackson. It's the same in Washington. It's the same in Alabama, wherever the case may be. It's the same old game that's been played, and not just for a couple of hundred years. This goes back ever since mankind has been involved in politics. Because there's always some loser politician with a big ego that will do anything to maintain power. And the other politicians know that. We've seen this game a lot. Now, with that said, that's how the game is played. And that's why it is that if you actually had young, dynamic, charismatic people that could break outside of that mold, and I don't know how you do it, because the people aren't going to let you break outside of the mold, because the second you do, the big guys are going to call you radical. The second you do, they're going to call you names, make fun of you, try to destroy your life, and the people fall for it.
And the media is going to help them. They're going to go right along with it, because by the very nature of you being a conservative Republican, the media, while they might not like the establishment Republican just because they are Republican, they have more in common with them.
You're exactly right. They'll do half stories with half truths. They'll blend, turn, implement. They'll do whatever they have to do to cover for that established order, because their bread is buttered there too. And it's not just the press. It's the organizations that claim they're fighting for you. They're dying for a seat at the table.
Yeah.
Even if they don't have anything to eat. They just want to sit at the table and feel important, because the ego is more important to them than getting things done. So they want to sit at the table, when all they have to do is turn the table over, elect good conservatives, and reestablish that type of order. The Democrats do it all the time. They fight. Yep. They'll fight. Not us. We have to ask permission. And that's the distinction. More poll numbers today. It's not just about Gallup. I found something else I like a lot, leading us to a second discussion about economic interest and liberty: taxation. Taxation. The Trump tax cuts are scheduled to expire, Jack.
Yes.
Next year.
Yeah, they're coming off the books.
Now look, it might not have been the biggest tax cut in the world, but it was a tax cut.
I saw a difference.
And any tax cut is a positive tax cut.
Yes.
Okay. Here's the thing, though. You have to ask Americans what they think about tax cuts. And usually, you can pretty much predict the split. Most Republicans, unless you're a rhino, will claim they're for tax cuts. Now, they'll pass fees and bonds and every other thing they can create, and they don't really are serious about real tax cuts most of the time, but they'll claim they're for tax cuts. Moderates sometimes are kind of ambivalent. Democrats almost never want to see a tax cut. The data shows just the opposite. Every party member, Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, even moderates, if you consider them a party unto themselves, all claim they want to maintain these tax decreases. I think that's interesting. I think it's interesting because on one hand, even the Democrats, 60+% of the Democrats claim that they don't think this is the time to increase taxes. Never thought I would see that. How do they pay for all their big government nonsense? I guess they think they can just print the money, which is going to be.
They probably do.
But the thing is that let's talk about something that's really important here. Again, I think it's lost on people a lot, Jack. Taxation is power. In fact, there was a Supreme Court case years ago, and a Supreme Court justice said, taxing is the power to destroy. And it really is. It's a very powerful tool government uses to control people. And for whatever reason, over the last 100 years or so, we've kind of fallen into the trap that we believe the government has an unlimited claim on whatever it is we work for. And we don't even say anything about it. When the first income tax was passed in 1913, it was a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of what it is now. And we still had schools and roads. We still had a military. But now, just like every other government program, once they pass a small tax, each year it perpetually grows and grows and grows. And at the end of World War II, it was a progressive, very big tax. And we've worked hard to bring that thing down, and Trump worked even harder to minimize it. And here's why it's important. That is liberty. Your economic liberty, the ability to spend what you make, is the very essence of everything you do. How do you eat if not by expenditures? How do you drink if not by expenditures? How do you take care of your family, go to church if not by expenditures? So if they can control that part of your life, they can control every part of your life. Now, they've done it effectively because we've allowed them to, and yet they still can't balance the budget. And that's the real threat. Because now even the Democrats want to see tax cuts, but they don't want to reduce spending. And now we're into the dilemma. Same with the Republicans all these years. They always talk about tax cuts, but they never want to reduce spending, at least not seriously. They talk about it, but they never do it. And those of us that try to reduce it, what do they call us?
Radicals, crazy, out of touch, whatever derogatory term that they come up with that day.
And now we're $35 trillion in debt with no end in sight because we can't seem to cut spending. Here's another reason taxation is a problem. Take Mississippi, for example, a relatively poor state, a state that struggled to produce economically for a long, long time. It's gotten better, but it still struggles to produce economically. The one thing we could do to turn the tables overnight is to eliminate our income tax. And now you've got all this new private money, private investment that comes to bear for jobs and consumption and creativity. And that could happen overnight in our state because we're facing right now more money than we've ever had in the history of Mississippi, and it's increasing every single month. And yet nobody has the courage to just eliminate the income tax. What would happen if you did? Jobs, prosperity, investment, consumption, everything that drives the economy forward. Now, in Mississippi, here we are trying to bring jobs, and yet the way we do it is we have a special organization that's supposed to go out and find a job and then pay them to come settle in Mississippi. Why not have a blanket statement for every citizen and send a message to every investor that if you come here, you don't have to pay that income tax? Texas did it.
Yep.
Florida did it.
Yep.
What were the results there if not economic success?
That's what the results were, economic success.
But we can't let it go. But thankfully with numbers like this, maybe people are starting to wake up just a little bit. It might be they're starting to realize that taxation is a real evil. Look, let's call it what it is. It's theft.
It is theft.
Our libertarian friends call it theft. It's absolutely theft. It's theft. Oh, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. What happens, let me ask you this, if you think it's not theft, and that it's not done at the barrel of a gun, what happens if you don't pay your taxes?
Oh, they come get you and your stuff. And if you're lucky, they just take your stuff and make it pay.
No, they come get you.
Yeah.
They may take your stuff, but ultimately the threat over your head is to come and arrest you.
Imprisonment.
Is that freedom?
No.
Is that liberty?
No.
It's theft.
Well, if you think about it too, Chris, if you own your own property, do you really own it, or are you paying rent to the government to stay there? I mean, it's
another
insane.
thing. But you know what? Everybody senses that argument. Everybody knows it. But those old politicians that need that money can't let it go.
No.
You don't have the courage to vote them out of office.
Nope,
You don't have the courage to vote them out of office. You know the policy stings. You know something should be done, but you're going to elect the same guys year in and year out. But at least the polls are showing, for the first time in a long time, that Americans seem to be in favor of tax reduction. I just wish my party was more in favor of it. I wish my party was more about doing it as opposed to lip service of doing it. And that's one good thing Trump did, by George. He gave us at least that. At least that is the best thing we've had in a long time. More news. Miss Harris, I think she owes us some answers.
Yeah, she seems to be allergic to those.
I think she owes us some answers. I don't understand what she's doing because she's been there now, I guess. She's had the nomination for over 2 months, 2.5, 3 months, something like that. But still no real interviews. She did one. Who was that with?
It was with Action News Philadelphia, I believe, and then she did a second with Oprah.
It was Action News Philadelphia. That's hard hitting, and Oprah was probably just as hard hitting.
Yep.
You know, Oprah can do a good job if she just would. She used to be a moderate, by the way.
Yep.
Now she's turned into I guess Harris is one of her biggest supporters.
A wackadoo liberal would probably be the best way to describe her policies now.
Well, maybe Oprah should have asked her some questions. I think one of the questions I would have asked her, so what are you going to do about inflation? I mean, because you've been up for 3.5 years and your party's had control for 3.5 years and inflation still seems to be iffy. I know they say it's under control, but I'm not sure that's because of Biden's policies as much as it is. It's just systemic. But I'm not systemic. It runs in cycles. But if she's going to keep spending the way she thinks she wants to spend, because one of her big proposals will be to spend and borrow more money, and that's going to drive inflation cost even more higher than it is now, why won't people just ask her that question? Why won't she answer the question? What about Ukraine? You know, I was thinking the other day, we got this aid package that we're about to vote on. I think it's another $300+ billion.
75, I think, 375.
And nobody's asked her, what will you do about Ukraine? Nobody's asked her about what would you do if China invaded Taiwan? Would you commit U.S. troops? Would you defend the democratic nation? Nobody's asked her about what she'll do about laws in the books dealing with immigrants voting in this country. We don't know. I mean, we do. I mean, we know what she believes. But the American people have no idea because nobody's asking these questions. What about the unrealized capital gains? Is she really going to tax unrealized capital gains? If I have a home and it appraises at a higher value, even though I haven't sold it, do I still owe taxes on that higher value? Nobody's asking questions, and so I'm looking for answers. And when I'm looking for answers with her, I still see word salads. And that concerns me because there's no way this polling should be this close with a woman who simply can't articulate a single position. And there we are. We have so much going for us, but nobody's asking her the questions. What would you ask her, Jack, if she came on this show?
Well, I think what the first thing would be, I would ask her point blank, said, look, you've been a part of this administration for the last 3+ years, and why haven't you done a single thing that you've talked about? You've been a key part of this administration, despite the fact that you want to try to pretend that you are not tied to the hip to Joe Biden. Tell me why you've done nothing. Why has the administration, because all you're going to be is an extension of what we currently have. So why haven't you done it?
I could answer that like she would answer it. I can answer it. She would say, I've done nothing because to do nothing is to do something. And when we do something, we make things better for nothings and somethings, and we do things together.
That's bold.
For joy. It's all for joy. Point is that I'm watching all this unfold, and I just want a few answers. And when I look for answers, I don't get them. When I look at the press, it always seems twisted and turned. By the way, Fox is just as bad. I'm not suggesting Fox is bad. I'm just saying that it's funny how they write articles with a one-sided tilt.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that?
I have.
And CNN, of course, they write it with a one-sided tilt. MSNBC writes it like the Communist Manifesto. It just depends on how far down. It depends on how far down the rabbit hole you want to go with these liberals. And then, if you filter through all of the data, you have to ask yourself where are they getting the data from. And I'm getting to a point here. I haven't lost my mind yet, although it's almost time for a commercial break. Where are they getting the data from? It's Washington. A lot of it is, right? Let me ask you a serious question. Crime in this country. Mm-hmm. Just how you feel, what you perceive. I know what Washington's saying. I know what Ms. Harris is saying. Is crime up or down?
It feels like it's up.
I think so. It feels up.
Yeah.
It feels less safe on the streets.
I know if you go to a city like Chicago, which again, I know it's always had more crime, but areas of the city that once felt safe, you don't feel as safe in anymore. That tells you crime is up right there.
Well, yeah, but not just in Chicago. It just feels. I mean, take Jackson, Mississippi.
Oh goodness!
And I'm not suggesting that should be an average. I don't think it's a good indicator for nationwide crime stats because Jackson is an outlier. Jackson's its own unique little, dangerous place to live. But get this: the debate the other night. What did you hear? Trump says crime is up. Harris says, wait, the FBI says it's down. Now stop right there and listen to me now. The FBI says it's down. Do you trust the FBI?
Not at all.
I mean, maybe they're telling the truth, but I guess the question should be, why are they saying it's down? Because they're citing stats that are given to us by the FBI. But if you look at other data, such as this guy, Jeffrey Anderson, he's the former director for the Bureau of Justice Statistics, he says there's been a surge in urban violence since 2019. He says the violent crime rate has gone 19% higher in 2023 than it was in 19. 19% higher. That's a pretty good jump.
Yeah.
But get this. If there is no crime, I'm going to blow your mind now. If there is crime that's diminishing, maybe it's just the reports of crime that are diminishing.
Yeah.
Consider some of these cities, you mentioned Chicago, they have a soft on crime approach. If you are soft on crime, if the police are being told not to seriously investigate or not to chase or not to arrest, guess what happens? The reports of crimes decrease. So you still could be seeing a rise in crime or an increase in crime. People just aren't going through the trouble of reporting the crime because they know it would be a waste of time. Either way, it's a sign of a culture in decline. If the enforcement policies aren't strong enough to decrease crime, or for that matter, encourage people to actually report crime, we're still failing as a country. And I think that's what Trump's been talking about.
I think you're 100% right. I think you're onto something. I think that we are seeing more cities out there that are not reporting as much. The police aren't putting it in their report, and not because the police are bad or evil. It's because the higher ups are telling them not to. They want to get those crime numbers down. So just let's not report it. If you're not engaging them, if you're told by the higher ups not to chase or to arrest, obviously it's going to look better.
Well, that's not the only number that's a little screwy, if you ask me. I mean, what about the jobs numbers? What about the jobs numbers? Bureau of Labor Statistics, another Washington, D.C. bureaucratic office, has been reporting jobs numbers, and they do it every so often.
Yeah.
Why do they keep over-reporting the jobs numbers? I mean, I know part of that is speculation. I don't want to be conspiratorial. I know part of it's speculation, but last month they overstated the job growth by 800,000 jobs. Now, let me tell you that, and that's not the first time they've done it. The month before, 500,000 jobs. They've done it almost every month. They overstate. So Biden gets the headlines, and then 2 days later they walk it back, and nobody reports it. Have you noticed that?
I have noticed that.
It stinks to high heaven. You watch, they report this wonderful job description or this job growth, and then they slide another document and say, sorry about that, we missed it. And the press buries it on page 36 or whatever of the New York Times. We're not getting the whole story. Again, I don't want to be conspiratorial, but Washington just simply can't be trusted. You're talking about whether it's crime or whether it's job data, everything out of that city has a spin to it. Everything has a corrupt hand in it. And whenever the administration is in charge, which right now the Democrats, you know they're pressuring the Bureau of Labor Statistics to put out this inflated number. You know they must be pressuring the FBI to put out numbers that must be good for them because they're trying to win elections. But if you can't trust the institutions, and we can't, where does that leave us as a people? You know, remember, conservatism used to be about upholding the old institutions so we have some degree of permanence as we age, pass on, and leave something to our kids. Think about the 30s and 40s, the FBI, the G-men, fighting corruption, right? It was a big deal. And we had a source of pride in what they were attempting. And now it seems the party, or not the party, but the organization's been politicized. So you don't know whether it's lawfare, or somebody's being arrested because they said something they shouldn't have said, or voted for somebody they shouldn't have voted for, whatever the case may be. So the institutions are being degraded. And if a country loses its institutions, what do we pass on? It gets interesting, and you begin to wonder, the more we distrust this city, Washington, what it does to our national psyche, what it does to our people, what it does to our kids. Now, with that said, I think it's time for an ad.
Resort.
You know, every time, maybe not every time, but often, when a dictator or a leader, let's just say a leader, let's not use the word dictator, the left will accuse me of, any number of atrocious things, but every time in a third world country, someone loses power.
Yeah.
Think about a banana republic or whatever the case may be. Every time a person loses power in a third world country, that poor soul, they attack him pretty aggressively. Think about it. They have to discredit him in the eyes of his past supporters.
Yes.
Because he remains, at least conceivably, a threat to the new power. So what do? In third world countries, they'll degrade you. They may shoot you. You may fall down a flight of stairs if you're in Russia. Whatever the case may happen. There's 1,000 ways they get rid of you. I found an article today where somebody was comparing the third world countries and their loss of leaders to what's occurring with Donald Trump and that same game plan being actually unfolding against Trump in this country. Consider, Trump is a threat to the establishment. He's a threat to the Democratic Party. So he loses power, and since then it's been one constant attack after the other. I'm getting to the point of the show. Who is the real threat to democracy? One attack after the other, one thing after the other. It's akin to a third world country. They have to degrade him. They have to cut his legs out from under him. They have to find ways for people to lose faith in him so he's no longer a threat. And then, Lord forbid, in the third world countries, if that doesn't work, then, you fall down the stairs or somebody takes a shot at you. Lord forbid that happens here. And yet it has happened.
Yeah.
Twice they've taken shots at him. Not just shots physically with guns, but shots legally. This whole lawfare thing is very, very real. I mean, they took a simple misdemeanor in New York and turned it into 34 separate felonies. Mm-hmm. And you have these other instances where he's basically been convicted of 34 different counts, but he's also been freed from 45 other counts. I mean, that's a lot of counts for a poor guy to go through. Basically, it was doing the same things he's always done before he was elected president.
Yeah.
So you see this lawfare being conducted in jurisdictions all across the country, and these politicians and these lawyers and these prosecutors do it for a reason. Naturally, they have a friendly venue, they have a friendly court system, friendly judges, and friendly jurors, and they think, I can make a name for myself. Let's take a shot at Donald Trump. If I miss, I got the indictment in the paper. If I make it, I got a conviction, and he's a bad, bad man. And we've seen this unfold many, many times, and it does sound a lot like a third world country. What can they do to degrade the man, to make him worse so no one will ever believe in him again? And it so happens the American left takes it a step further. So the New Republic, a lot like MSNBC, you've probably seen the New Republic online a few times.
I have.
Okay. They have warned us, again, that 2024 is going to be America's last election if Donald Trump wins.
I have seen that warning multiple times.
They say American democracy is over. And then they say, if we don't win on the 5th, I think our country is going to cease to exist. I don't like that kind of phraseology. No. I don't like it for them. I don't like it for us. I say that because as mad as I am about hearing them say it, I've had friends I've seen say it online. Do you all really think that, Lord forbid, if Trump loses this election, that the whole country collapses?
No.
I mean, it stinks. It's going to be horrible. We'll go through a period of uncertainty and sadness and awfulness. We're still going to be here. I'm still going to be working.
Yeah.
I still got a job. I got bills to pay. You do too. The biggest concern I've got is when we use that type of rhetoric, we leave our people no hope if something bad does happen.
Yep.
All great military leaders recognize the possibility, however slim, that something could go wrong on the battlefield. And you encourage your troops to fight like the end is near, but you never want them to believe the end is near. And Lord forbid, if they're defeated or something goes wrong and you have to enter into a retreat, you have to do so in a way that inspires them. There was a colonel in Korea back in 51 or 52. The Marines were in that retreat. And it was a significant retreat all the way down the reservoir, all the way down the peninsula. And they asked him about the retreat, and he said, retreat hell, we're advancing in a different direction. Clever.
Yeah.
But you see what he did there?
Yeah.
We're not retreating, we're advancing, just in a different direction. I'm tired of seeing people say, we're going to lose this country entirely. That's dangerous because, Lord forbid, if he loses, are we all just going to, what are we going to do? We're going to quit?
I know we won't.
What do you do? I mean, do you wake up on November the 6th and say, it's over. I can't feed my kids anymore. I can't go to work. Why are we using this language? I know it's an important race. I get that. They all are. But is it existential?
Well, here's the thing, too. If Donald Trump, God forbid, loses the election, then what you need to do is focus on doubling down and making sure that you win other elections. And this goes back to something, Chris, we've talked about multiple times, and one of our biggest frustrations is the once every 4-year voters who only focus on a presidential race. If we were taking care of business in our home states, if we were making sure that we were electing liberty-minded people in our home states, then this wouldn't matter as much.
We've talked about that ad nauseum. We have been over that, and it's so frustrating because we spend all this time, money, and energy. And don't get me wrong, it's a huge race.
Yeah.
I don't mean to discount it. I mean, he gets to control the Supreme Court, federal judges, a lot of big decisions. But Congress still holds the power, as it should. And so it's kind of weird that we discount and ignore those races. and we discount and ignore our state legislative races, which, by the way, is pretty much where all the power is. People don't realize that. How many laws do you suppose Washington passes in a year? Almost none, because it's basically just stalemate.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, a state house will pass 400, every one of which could take away your liberty or your money or whatever the case may be. But we focus all of our attention watching CNN and Fox News. It's a weird dilemma. And I think that's one reason we're losing the country. Now, with that said, they're much worse than we are because they're framing it in terms of violence. And I'm going to get to that in a second. I haven't seen us phrase it in terms of violence. Our people, they may be worried and scared, but they're not taking shots at people.
No.
And God help us if we do. There's no place for that activity in American political discourse. And it goes to the bigger point, I think, of today's show. Has our discourse gone too far now? If the American left is literally saying the end of America is going to take place if Donald Trump wins in November, the crazy people listening will take that very seriously, and they will do things trying to stop it. And you wonder why the poor guy is getting shot at. It's because the American left is ratcheting up the discourse to such a level that it's starting to influence the crazies out there. Now, I'm not saying that without evidence. I've got the evidence here, and these crazies have been all over the place. 2012, Floyd Lee Corkins. He gets a handgun. He gets some magazines. He goes up to Washington, D.C. headquarters of the Family Research Council. Remember this? Mm-hmm. His plan is to kill people, as many as he can, and he was so sick that he had Chick-fil-A sandwiches, and he was going to apparently stuff the sandwiches into their mouths after they'd been shot. Who was he? He was a Democrat, liberal, you know, but he had been hearing all this rhetoric about Trump, I suppose, and not Trump then, but I'm sure it was somebody. I'm sure it was some existential threat to his existence, and he thought he would take it upon his own power to do something ridiculous. June 2017, you remember the name James Hodgkinson?
Sounds familiar.
He armed himself with a rifle, handgun. He goes to Alexandria, Virginia, takes a shot at some of the congressmen playing softball. Remember that?
Yep.
I think he hit Scalise, didn't he?
He did.
Went through all that. Who was this guy? He was a Bernie Sanders guy, you know, another Democrat, another liberal out there. It seems to be one thing after the other. That guy wrote a few weeks before the shooting that Trump is a traitor. And he said it, Trump has destroyed our democracy. Mm-hmm. There it is. There it is. And they hear these things and they take action. Nicholas Rosk, 2022. He went up to the nation's capital, got a handgun, a knife, a hammer, a screwdriver, a crowbar, a duct tape. I mean, these are items of a man who means to do somebody significant harm, right? Yeah. In fact, if you buy those things at a store, you should be flagged immediately, right? Turn the video cameras on.
Not that you support red flag.
No.
I'm
just saying. I'm saying you get a tactical. You get a gun, a tactical knife, a hammer, a screwdriver, a crowbar, duct tape, and burglary tools. I'm just saying, you know. Maybe the cops should, you know, watch this guy.
Yeah, anyway, he's up to no good.
He goes over to Brett Kavanaugh's house there in Maryland and began to have second thoughts. He was going to kill him.
Yep.
Because he was going to save Roe versus Wade. Mm-hmm. This is a common thread with these people. The left media ratchets up this rhetoric. You're going to end rights for women. Yeah. You're going to end the country as we know it. You're going to destroy democracy. Trump's going to be a dictator. He's going to deport all the Mexicans, whatever the case may be. People get afraid and they take action. That's why the discourse is broken, and I'm really hoping we can be better than that. March 2023, Audrey Hale, transgender individual, slaughtered 3 children and 3 adults at the Covenant School in Nashville, Tennessee. It's a Christian school. It turns out this person took precious time during the rampage to fire 7 rounds into a stained glass depiction of Adam. That's how serious it is. It was anti-Christian because apparently upset that something was going to happen because they hear this stuff from people. And then President Trump, of course, he has to take 2 assassins in just the last few months, or would-be assassins just in the last few months. And why? Because they have a mission. See, that's how democracy ends. The rhetoric gets really big, really loud, really hateful, and crazy people take action. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're trying to stop here. And so, but if you ask the left to ratchet down, they can't.
No.
And Jack, they've never been able to ratchet down the rhetoric. I want you to consider, you can't disagree with a leftist. without a personal insult.
No.
And it's been like that for as long as I've been in politics. I might have a fundamental mathematical reason for being against a policy they're promoting. In the instant I vote no, I'm a racist.
Yep.
I'm a sexist.
Yep.
Misogynist.
Yep.
Radical. Gotta go. That's the language that alienates people. And you wonder why it is that conservatives feel polarized, especially poor Christians. Have you ever seen a group under more radical attack than Christians in this country?
No.
I don't want to hear this, we still dominate the culture and we're still in control of things. That is mischief. Christians are losing rights slowly but surely every day. Now, it's not happening quickly enough to actually violate a stated amendment, but you hear the left talking, and they put things in terms of religious bigotry. Now, that's code word, but you know what it means, right? And they're trying to say their rights are in conflict with religious bigotry. What they're really saying is religious people don't have rights as long as their rights are affected.
Yep.
That's not what this country's built on. There has to be a time, your rights end where mine begin. It's the same principle here. You can't overcome religious liberty and freedom just because you want to force your way onto an individual or to a community that has to be respected. But they're under attack. So, here's the point. Rhetoric, that's how you end democracy. That's how you create anger. That's how crazy people act. And when you call Trump a Nazi for doing nothing remotely Nazi-esque, it's strange. By the way, you see the story today, Jack? There was an interesting reporter that shot down the left's attempt to smear Donald Trump. You know how he did it? Did you see the story? Turns out that the New Republic, here they are again, had a meltdown because Trump mentioned something about serial numbers and illegal aliens. What's the parallel? What'd they say? That's just like Hitler.
It's always
He's going to
Hitler.
use serial numbers to get these poor people. As it turns out, by the way, look at me. They already have serial numbers. And that was pointed out by a press guy. In other words, when a legal alien comes to this country, they are assigned a number. Trump was absolutely correct. They have serial numbers. You can go to CIS and look it up. But the liberals didn't stop. They took the propaganda, they spun it, they attacked, they were vicious. Even the fact that the number exists didn't have them step down from calling Trump a Nazi. And that's where we are. And that's the problem. Now, with all that said, we got to find ways to temper, got to find ways to do better, got to find ways to make sure the left recognizes their limitations. And with that said, a good place to start, I think, was an article I found. Do you believe that? Can you read that from there? What's it say? Read it for the people. Can you believe it?
It says why the next president, whether it's Donald Trump or Harris, won't have a mandate.
Jonah Goldberg wrote this. Conservative. It's interesting because we think of this in terms of it's all won or all lost on November the 5th. And he made a good point. He says, mandates are something that's relatively new. It's a creation. There's not a word for mandate in the Constitution. There's not an Article 1 mandate if the president were to win. Congress is in control. He says that.
Yeah.
It's the most powerful branch. He points that out. So maybe that's one way to tone it down just a bit, is to recognize that no matter what happens on the 5th, as badly as we want Trump to win, that there still has to be other things to occur before real serious change can be implemented in this country. And maybe if we recognize that, we wouldn't be so angry. It might just be, though, that civics hasn't been taught in so long that nobody knows that. Maybe folks believe that we're electing a king. We don't have kings in this country. Trump was there for 4 years before, remember?
Yep.
And he did great. But we still have some of the same problems. That's the way the system's created. It's going to be tough.
That's the thing, too, that I think gets lost a lot of times when we're talking about this presidential race, when we're talking about Trump in general. They all say that if Trump gets elected, it's the end of democracy. It's going to end everything. But the man was president for 4 years, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, did the American democracy end during Trump's last 4 years?
No, that's just it. And it didn't end when Biden won either.
Nope.
We have to be fair.
Yeah.
But I guess it sounds good. You can raise money with those comments. Oh, by the way,
Oh, it's a
I'm
great
so
soundbite.
sick of getting these texts from these people raising money. Do you get those a lot?
Yes.
Did you know that the other day Donald Trump specifically asked about me and asked me why I had not donated yet? Did you
No
know
way. He asked about me too.
that? Texted me.
Wow.
Texted me. Sure did. I felt honored. There was also one. Trump Jr. has reached out a few times. Gingrich has reached out. By the way, I've actually talked to Gingrich. That's not. I don't know why he was sending
You've talked to Trump too.
a psycho text message trying to scare me into giving him somebody money. I have. I've talked to. I like Trump very much. I've met with him a couple of times, and he's always been very. It's funny. He was incredibly pleasant, and nothing like he's depicted by the press. Nothing. I mean, calm, dispassionate, nice, polite. Eager to please, just a good guy. You can't tell that from the press, can you?
No, they would have you think that if you're going to meet with Trump, you're going to sit in a dark corner until he acknowledges you. You're not going to be treated with respect. You're going to have to. Yeah. That's the spin they try to tell you.
It was nothing like that. It was, I've been blessed with a lot of individuals over the years I've dined with and met, and he was incredibly pleasant. He was right up there. So. Anyway, a couple of more stories. I got to get out of here. I'm tired. And I'm concerned about the Labor. Have you seen this?
I did see that one. Yes.
The Labor Party over in the UK, now they're left-wingers.
Big time.
But this goes to my point earlier. Think of what I say earlier. The left are authoritarians.
They are.
They want to control you. Same in Labor, England. Now, most of you won't care about this. And what's funny is some of the more religious social conservatives will probably back this, which means you're authoritarian too. Here's the thing. Bars, they're everywhere, especially in drinking cultures like the UK.
Yeah.
I don't have to tell you the people of Ireland like to drink. I don't have to tell you the Scots, the English love to drink.
There's a pub on every corner.
There's a pub on every corner. The Labour is beginning to advocate that they limit the time these pubs can be open. Authoritarian. What business is it of labor or of the government if somebody wants to open a pub and leave it open? Now, I know there's going to be some busybodies out there that say, well, people shouldn't be drinking. That's none of your business.
I agree.
It's not a government's business. If you want to stop someone from drinking, then go down there, meet them at the pub, and try to talk them out of it. But don't pass a law that dictates it. Which, by the way, is that not authoritarian?
It's 100% authoritarian.
And yes, I'm sure some people are like, yeah, it needs to happen. No, it doesn't. Leave people alone. Leave businesses alone. Leave these good old boys alone. If they want to go have a drink at 3 a.m, that's fine. Now, you can't drive.
No, there's a reason why you don't want them to drive after drinking. That's a different set of. That's to protect them and others on the road.
The question is, could that one day happen here? And the answer
Absolutely.
is, absolutely it can. It's just a matter of time. One more quick story. This Macklemore guy.
I saw this.
Now, I know he's had at least one song. He maybe two.
I couldn't tell you what it was.
I can't tell you either. I just know he's a rapper, right?
I've heard the name, but I didn't even know he was a rapper.
You read this story, didn't you?
I did.
The guy apparently has some success because he was able to purchase into a couple of soccer teams. He's a part owner of the Seattle Kraken.
Yeah, that's the hockey team.
Hockey team. That's right. And the I thought it was which one's soccer? Wait a minute.
He's a part owner.
He's
of
part
both.
of both. That's what I was getting to. Why would he, during a pro-Palestinian event, yell "Elf America"? Now, here's the thing.
How about leave America, bud?
Well, here's the thing. I get he has every right to say whatever it is he wants to say. I'm not trying to control the man. What's weird, though, is that he has all this success. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to be hateful here, but bear with me. He literally had a couple of rap songs.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all he's ever done. Made millions. There's no other country in this world that would have given him that benefit and that prestige and that popularity for running your mouth for 3.5 minutes per song. Makes millions in a country that allows him to say those things, even though they're profane, that buys and encourages it, because even though it's profane, and then he says that. I don't get the disconnect. He has every right to say it. If he wants to make a political statement, he's been blessed beyond reason. And he's been blessed beyond reason in the only country in the world that would have allowed him to consider those blessings. I would love to see him get away with his rap music in Saudi Arabia.
Oh,
that'd be a heck of a cultural test right there, would it not?
It
Anywhere
would.
in the Middle East, anywhere in many parts of Africa, in many parts of South America, it just simply would not be tolerated. Here we tolerate it and give him money for it, and he still hates us. It goes to show when you're spoiled, sometimes you just don't understand how good you got it.
No, you don't. And there's, Chris, can we end on a good story for?
If it's less than 30 seconds, the answer is yes. Otherwise, I'm running.
Well, you're familiar with the band Three Doors Down, and they have Mississippi.
I knew you were going to segue
You knew where
to
I
that.
was going to go.
I knew you were going to segue
Mississippi Connections.
there. Yeah.
Their singer, Brad Arnold, he likes to get up on stage and profess his faith in Jesus Christ. And I think that this is good.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that he gets up there and says, this world surrounds us with a message that will never be good enough, will never be strong enough, will never be beautiful enough, will never be rich enough. Whatever the case may be, certainly that will never win. Social media surrounds us with those messages all the time. It's driven down our throats every day that we'll never be good enough and nobody really loves us. He says, my friends, I just want to take a second to tell you that's an absolute lie. You are loved, you are enough, and you'll win. Not only can you win, but you will win. You'll always be enough for one reason, and that's because Jesus Christ loves you.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, here's the thing. Macklemore got all the press.
He should
Macklemore got all
listen to
the
this
press.
guy.
Well, a lot of us should. I think it's very important, and it's a critical thing in this country right now, because we have gotten away from certain permanent things. Mm-hmm. We've neglected those permanent things, and we've neglected the things that really made us strong in the first place. And Christianity is one of those. In fact, and this is going to get me in big trouble, but when you have a free people like ours, and a country that literally was blessed, in large part because of the blessings of God himself, I believe that, mm-hmm. And you remove Christianity from the public discourse, you remove it from politics, you remove it from just the way people behave and react. I'm not saying we should be perfect. I'm wholly imperfect.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said about a cultural system that makes us self-manage. There's something to be said about a cultural system that values the permanence and values the good things in life, something that values positivity and, looks with disgust at things that are nasty and can be degrading. We've lost that. And the country is failing because of it in large part. I would argue that Christianity is an indispensable component of America. And as we lose it, we lose some of the most valuable things about America. I am unapologetically in favor of people living their lives as they see fit. I don't want government dictating or controlling. This is not a theocracy. But I'm also 100% in favor of that written and unwritten Constitution in every man's heart that somehow enables us to moderate ourselves and to be good people because we believe in something permanent, because we believe that there's going to be answers for the things that we do wrong now. You do away with that, chaos ensues. Always has, always will. And I think we're seeing the fruits of that chaos now. So it's a good story. I wish him the best. The shame of the matter is, now that he's done it, he'll probably be ostracized even more.
Oh,
so.
you know he will be.
But that's a good band.
Yeah.
They got more hits than Macklemore.
Yeah. You got Mississippi roots, too, so you got to
Anyway, this has been fun, but it's time to go. Jack, I appreciate it. This is Chris McDaniel's America. Thank you for being here. This has been the Midnight Ride, your home of the anti-establishment network, or the anti-establishment movement in this country. Same thing. It's a principle.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time. Take care.
Looks like you've been sleeping well,
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
and you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0.
Wow, it's so soft and smooth.
It's cool to the touch. How did you do that?
Well, we took My Pillow's patented fill and combine it with this new technology that we didn't have back then when I invented MyPillow to bring you the best pillow in history, MyPillow 2.0. Just like all of you, I never imagined that MyPillow could get any better. That's why I haven't changed it in nearly 20 years. Then I heard about a revolutionary new technology, and I knew I had to bring it to you all. MyPillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of MyPillow.
The MyPillow 2.0 is cooler and softer than the last MyPillow. It is so comfortable to sleep on at night. I look forward to going to bed, and I wake up well rested in the morning.
Sleep is all about temperature and height. MyPillow 2.0's patented adjustable fill is going to give you the exact individual support you need from your head to your bed. And now here's where it gets even better. We've all experienced those temperature-related sleep interruptions where you get too hot, you toss and turn, you flip your pillow over to the cool side. Well, all that's gone with my brand new MyPillow 2.0 cooling fabric that's made with temperature-regulating thread.
The best sleep just got even better. Whether you have a MyPillow or not, you need to get the brand new MyPillow 2.0. Call or go to MyPillow.com now. Use your promo code, and for a limited time when you buy one, you'll get a second one absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
Visit MyPillow.com.